Hey everybody, welcome to Bura. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about two big right to repair things that have just happened. All right, welcome back. So let's take a look at the right to repair equipment moved from the North Carolina Senate Farm Bill and why it matters, and how California's right to repair bill dies in the Senate committee. So these are two big things here. So if you don't know what right to repair is, it's the idea that you can just kind of repair your phone, or in this case, your farm equipment, with kind of over-the-counter parts and without going to a special shop or without accessing some special software here. Now, what's interesting about this here is that a lot of people know right to repair for their phones, right? Like if you scratch your iPhone screen, then guess what? You have to actually go to the Apple store, and it's very difficult to get a third-party part. And if you do, Apple will even brick you from the services. And what that means is that Apple will make your software inaccessible. So like all your photos and all this stuff, it's just not there. So let's take a look at this one. This one is a big deal here because California, with 75% of Californians and both parties. So like this is a thing where in the last few weeks I've been talking about political divide. This is something where you can disagree on many things, but can come together for one thing. I think people should more or less do this here. You should find things that people agree with and get them done. And this is a huge thing. It's hard to get people to agree on such a thing. But anyway, so at least 75% of Californians thinks it's a good thing to do. And I would bet that even the 25% would somewhat support it. It's just, there's probably like something that they think is too far, right? And I'm going to be talking about inflation, of course, because that's like the buzzword of the year at the end of this year. But basically, it said that, it was essentially killed. So this big right to repair bill is not going to happen in California. We'll see what happens later. But we talk about phones, but the thing is that farm equipment, the big thing for right to repair is farm equipment, because farmers not only have a really important job, but it's also really difficult. And having like the right to repair laws in the way that they are really does impact them in a negative way. Now, of course, I run a business and I want my business to go by swimmingly, right? And whenever there's kind of like a hitch or whatever, I don't want that in my business, right? And so I can really relate to the farmers, even though the way that I live is probably the furthest away from a farmer here. But I really do relate to them and why it's a big problem here. And so basically what this is there is a Farm Act, and it was essentially removed. It was removed, of course, by the manufacturers here. So here's the thing. A lot of these companies are publicly traded and they're just looking out for their profits. Now, that's why they are so vigilant about this particular topic here. And the thing is that part of their income comes from the repair. So if that were to just magically disappear, they have to make up that income in a different way. And so even if all of this right to repair stuff goes through, like pretty much all levels of government in a lot of different countries, then you're going to see something that was unintended in the back end. And I think the biggest unintended consequence of this is the fact that you have to raise the price here. Now, a lot of people talk about printers and the same kind of thing with right to repair, although it's a little bit different. So if you don't know, you could buy a cheap printer, but the ink costs even more than the printer, which doesn't make any sense. But when you think about it, it kind of does. So we have the printers that are cheap, where the ink is expensive, or you could buy a really expensive printer where you don't have the problems of a cheap printer. And that could happen. What it could mean is that if this tractor costs, X amount of dollars, you might have to pay almost double what you would have to normally pay for a tractor. Here, if you can repair it yourself, you might have to pay more for the parts here. Now that is really interesting, because if that does happen, then there will be competition. And as we know, competition is a really good thing. So you might see some other manufacturers step up and make a cheaper product here. So in the end, it's probably a good thing. But believe it or not, you will have to pay more for your equipment. And this goes the same thing for your phones here, because Apple makes a certain amount of money from their repairs. And if they don't make that money, they have to be accountable for their shareholders. Now, the other thing that nobody's talking about is that if, let's say, Apple starts selling less phones because they cost more, that is not good for their stock. And Apple is a fairly blue chip stock, meaning that a lot of people just invest in it because they know it's going to be worth more in the future. And I'm one of those people, right? I just kind of have it in my retirement because I know that Apple's probably going to be worth more in the future. And if it goes down, then guess what? I get a better deal. deal. Like, and a lot of people think that. So these bills have real consequences in terms of like the stock price. And a lot of people don't think that. Now, I would argue that these companies have been given a little bit too much leeway when it comes to this issue, and they have to dial it back a bit here. Now, the other thing that Apple could do is they could just provide the best support through competition, but it's much more difficult to do that than the current system. It's much easier to make a system where they have to go through you than it is to provide a better product. It is way more difficult to do that, but it would be better for the consumer. And that's the other thing, is this is why most people think it's a good idea, because at least if some people at the very basic level, people want to be able to fix their devices that they paid with their money for the cheapest possible price. And then if you're maybe a little bit more sophisticated with economics, you might say that more competition leads to lower prices and better services and higher innovation, by the way. And that's the kind of thing that they would argue here. And I would argue pretty much the same thing. So this is not necessarily a good day for the right to repair here. And again, when it comes to farmers, right, I really do feel for them. And then everyone should feel for them, because as you know, inflation is really big right now. And why is inflation so high? Well, diesel prices are really high, but also when a farmer has to take time to just fix the equipment to make the food, right? They could be using that for literally anything else, right? Because of that, you can see that, food prices go up. Now, it's mostly because of fuel costs. Like, that's the reason why we're seeing inflation here. But I think the farming sector would be a lot more productive if these right to repair acts went through, because farmers could, kind of fix their own equipment at their own cost. And what they could probably do is use their time more efficiently. Sometimes you have to take this tractor all the way to a John Deere location, and that's really difficult. Now, this is just a simple tractor here. Farm equipment gets insanely big and insanely complicated. So if I have to take a very big, complicated thing, it could cost me up to $1,000 to load a piece of farm equipment to take it down to the John Deere location. Like, it's really cumbersome. And I think if that were just all removed, farmers would A, probably be more profitable, B, be happier, which does lead to more profits, and C, be able to provide their product, and thus inflation would probably be a little bit lower here. Now, of course, again, inflation is a very complicated topic here, but I think it would absolutely help. All right, so that concludes this video. I want to know your thoughts down below. Is this a good day? Do you really support right to repair? Again, please comment on this video, because this video does not get enough comment. So please comment in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.